Hi, I'm Arlene McIntyre, Creative Director at Ventura Design, and you're listening to Shut the Front Door, a light-hearted podcast that will bring you through the front door and into the homes of influential and interesting people. Home for me is one of the most important things in my life. My career has fortunately given me the opportunity to work closely with people and to help them create a home they will cherish forever. Today we are joined on Shut the Front Door by Princess Yachts principal designer Mr. Richard Dart. Being a great talent at designing luxurious yachts, Richard designs within unique spaces to the highest of standards in this luxurious industry. He and his design team design exterior and interior spaces, furniture, bars, and even have a bespoke service offering everything from jacuzzis to open-air cinemas. Princess is recognized as the leading luxury British yacht brand in the world. The company was founded in 1965 and is entirely based in Plymouth, where they have designed, built, and delivered over 18,000 yachts to universal acclaim. With 15 years' experience at Princess, Richard has helped lead the team of 2 Super Yacht Design Awards, as well as numerous international awards. Richard lives in Devon with his wife Alice and their 2 young children, Arthur and Mabel. Richard, thank you very much for joining me today on Shut the Front Door.
Wow, thank you. What an intro. Thank you, Arlene, for that. That's great.
So thank you so much for joining me today. How are you managing during the lockdown? Or have you been working through it?
Yeah, I'm not doing bad at all. It was obviously quite a shock in March. So my normal kind of work pattern would be I work in the office. There's 26 designers on my team, and we work in this big open plan office of 90 people. So it's very busy, normally quite loud and kind of lots of interactions. And then obviously we got the call to say, we got to stay at home. So that was tricky at first because the specialist software we use and such like meant that we had problems with infrastructure, but we just had to quickly learn. And essentially everyone went home. Princess Yachts itself was shut for about 6 or 9 weeks. I actually carried on as one of the 90 people to continue my work, to just help build and get readiness for the team going back to work. But yeah, now we have a team of that we mix. So essentially we have a satellite site. So we have probably only 10% of the people in the offices, and about 60-70% of people are at home. And Princess as a company is fully operational because it's a manufacturing site. So we're kind of finding the new normal. I mean, we didn't know what Microsoft Teams is before this, and now that's all we use. So it's just a new way of communicating. And I think for me, the main thing is you really appreciate your team.
Yes.
Those chats you have in the tea room or whatever, you realize how valuable they are, and that a strong team is so important in this process. So, and then from a personal sort of side, it's my wife and I had a child 16 months ago, and so my wife's been on maternity leave for the most part. So she had to look after my 4-year-old son and young daughter. So that was obviously challenging because everything,
Yes.
you couldn't leave your house. So. But yeah, we're all good, all safe and well, and everyone's working well now as a team and stuff. So it's great, really. And for future, it's exciting because it's a new way of working.
Absolutely. It's a total. But you've had a very challenging time with the 16-month-old baby. My goodness, congratulations.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, mainly my wife has done a fantastic job of taking the lion's share of that, and I've obviously tried to keep working. We're fortunate that we've got office space because my wife also is she's a branding designer, so she's got a little studio upstairs. So I've hijacked that, and we're kind of using that together.
Perfect. So you've worked it all out. It's incredible how so many people, just like yourselves, that have had to figure it out, and they have. So
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a necessity, I suppose.
For sure. And it's the new normal. And do you miss that interaction with your team? Like that physical?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you do. Absolutely. I mean, not seeing them very often is harder. I mean, I do go into the office once a week to have that connection. And for me, it's not just the people, it's the product as well. We very much work on site with our yachts around us. And it's great to go down there and see your design develop and stuff. So you do miss that interaction as well, and just. So I'll be looking forward to getting back to a bit of normality where we have a good mix of blended working, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brighter times ahead for sure. So I'm going to start with my questions with you, Richard. And my first question for you is if you could please share your earliest memories of your childhood home.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small hamlet in Cornwall with my two sisters. I've got a younger sister and an older sister. We lived along what is a country lane, really. All the properties were quite large gardens and all split out in rows, really. And one end of the lane was my parents' house and us, and the other end was my grandparents. So that was quite unique. So I used to spend quite a lot of my time cycling up and down between ours and my grandparents' house, which was nice. I mean, in terms of memories, I think my first ones have probably just been outside. I used to love being on my bike and building tree houses and such. Like, kind of building stuff has always been my thing. And we had like a gigantic willow tree in our front garden. I used to always climb up there and work out how I could create a hanging tree house up there. Yeah, so mainly outside, but yeah, really happy childhood, really, and just pretty normal, really. Just enjoying growing up and being in the countryside.
Yes. And what was your style like in your family home? Was there any particular style?
Our house was actually a bungalow, so it was probably a 1960s bungalow on quite a large plot. We had about 3/4 an acre garden on a bit of a slope, and it was quite modern, I suppose, in its time. It had very large windows and just really clean spaces. So yeah, it was quite simple. There was no particular style, I guess. It was more what was on trend at the time. My parents, my dad worked in banking, and my mum worked at a travel agent. And so the design background wasn't quite there, but they did have a real passion, and always have done, for property and homes and stuff. And they always really valued that as a family. So yeah, that was cool. And I mean, one of the things that happened to me when I was growing up, which was kind of pivotal in my kind of career and outlook for life, is my parents actually built their own house. So when I was in my teens, my parents found a plot that their friend had and said, "Oh, I'd love to build a house. It's always been a dream." And they kind of worked through that. My mum actually designed the house, and we got a technician to draw it up. And I used to just love, every day I would go down there and see the progress. So I'd, be up in the roof and understanding what the views are like. And particularly my mum, who's a very good visualizer, like myself, we would walk around and kind of visualize the interiors and stuff. And we'd always be on site and getting involved with that. And I actually did quite a lot of it myself. We were laying floors and building partitions when I was on summer holidays and stuff. But yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, gosh. And tell me about your own bedroom as a teenager. What posters did you have on the walls?
Well, I was in my teens. I was very much into surfing, so I did quite a lot of surfing with my friends. So I don't know why, but I thought it was probably quite cool to have kind of a bedroom the style of a surf shop. So I remember it being a kind of very bold blue on the walls, and my posters would probably be, big wave surfers and probably exotic supercars at the time. But yeah, just your general kind of loud colours, really. Which I guess is a complete opposite to where I am now, but I suppose it shows how your interests at the time influence the style of your home, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then when did you move out of home, and tell me about your college days?
Yeah, so I went to a normal secondary and school and what have you. I kind of grew up always loving design and art. It was always my strong subject. I've always been quite badly dyslexic, so it was always a big
Wow.
focal point for me, because it was something that gave me a way to communicate with the world, really. So I've always felt like I'm really strong on visualizing spaces or objects and solving problems, really, to overcome the challenges I had, I guess, from my dyslexia. So I think that's kind of shaped me into a designer, really. I was always very much, I did A-level art and design and computing. So I was a bit technical bias, but I certainly had a thread of artistic nature. And I mean, my sister's a professional photographer now. Um, and yeah, I kind of, all my friends are kind of creative, and even my father-in-law, he's a well-renowned potter in the area. There is
Mm.
artistic nature in our kind of family and home and stuff like that. But I then went on to Bournemouth University, so I studied product design for 4 years. How I came working at Princess was that in my fourth year I did industrial placement, and Princess at the time was quite close to my family home. And I started there, did my placement, and loved it. And I was lucky enough. I remember taking down the design show of my project work, and they gave me a call and said, "Look, do you want to come back?" And I jumped to the offer. So I didn't look back really. And then I've worked there 15 years and worked my way up from design junior all the way to principal. So it's
My
been
gosh.
quite a journey, and I've fallen in love with designing luxury items, really.
Wow. So your passion for design started at a really early age then.
Yeah, I think it did, and for me, it manifested with creating stuff. That was always my first driver. I'm quite practical, and I used to always like building anything from skate ramps to whatever you do as a kid. You make paper airplanes, or you build structures or tree houses and stuff. That was always a thread of my upbringing, really.
Interesting. And were you ever on £1 million yacht when you were younger?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I just fell into it, as I said, through kind of my career, but I have obviously had the opportunity to spend a bit of time on them, which is pretty amazing. I do know quite a few people, and even a family member worked on super yachts for a few years, but yeah, not myself, unfortunately.
Yes. And how did you get specifically into yacht design?
So yes, product. I was always a product designer, really, at heart. So I studied that, as I said, for 4 years. But when I did that placement, and I could really experience using different materials, and the craftsmanship and stuff of that was really important to me. I absolutely love joinery, I suppose, and how things are crafted, and because our boats are so bespoke, and I mean 80% of what we do is actually manufactured very locally to Plymouth, and it gives me the opportunity that I will in the morning I'll go down to the carpentry shop and see this wealth of like materials and craftsmanship, and I'll go in there and spend some time with the joiners working on the furniture, and we'll tweak the designs to make them perfect. I think that's what really sparked an interest to me, the fact that you do have to stick to a budget, but it is slightly less restrictive than in other industries. And instead of spending hours meticulously looking at a part that's injection molded or how a fitting goes in, I get to see the bigger picture. I want one day I might be designing a helm station, or the next day you might be designing a bespoke piece of furniture that's going to go into a living space. So it's very varied, which I find really exciting.
And how is your industry currently faring during the pandemic in general? Are people continuing to upgrade and build bespoke as they wait for the green light to get back to traveling again?
Yeah, exactly. You've kind of hit on the head. That is what's happening. So even in the lockdown period, we obviously shut down all our international sales opportunities, essentially. So all the boat shows and everything like that had stopped. So our marketing team looked at doing visual boat shows and different media releases so they can connect with the customer. But what we saw was that sales didn't really drop. I mean, I believe in April, we actually had record commercial sales. We were selling boats at the rate we would normally sell at, despite all these constraints.
Wow.
And I think you're right. It's a case of people wanted to look close to home. So if you're a super net worth individual that has a house in Miami and you have a mooring at the end of your garden, why would you not want a boat that you can go out and enjoy with your family, even in these times? So I think it's brought everyone back to home, realised the important things, and having holidays on a super yacht or a yacht of any size, I think it's just a really nice family emotional kind of travel experience, really.
Gosh, I've always wanted to do it. It's something I have always dreamt about doing, and I hope to do sometime soon when things get back to normal. I've read that 21 unique yachts constitute your entire product range. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have a really big range. So we start off with we got a full carbon fiber day boat, which is kind of like a super fast yacht that we've developed a couple of years ago. So this boat was totally new for us. It was, we never worked with carbon before. We actually partnered with Pininfarina, Italian design house, to work with the styling. We also worked with Ben Ainsley, the America's Cup racing team, and they developed a foil system for our boat. So that was incredibly exciting for us. And then as you move through the ranges, we've got kind of different brands. So we have a Y class, which is your kind of relaxing, large super yacht that kind of is probably about anything between 2 and 4 or 5 million pounds. And then you
Wow.
have smaller boats that are like your 50-foot, and then they break into a sports range and a speedboat range. So you have different influences. So some are more sexy in their kind of look, and they're there for being a statement, and they have less accommodation space. And then you have more that are more practical. Like we've just launched an X95, which is a completely new product for us. So you take the interior space and some of the exterior space. We've actually cloaked it with glass, and we've cut open the front of the boat and we've put glass there, and we've extended all the volume out. So we've created a boat that on paper is the volume of a 35-meter boat, but this is a lot smaller product, and it's just really edgy and interesting and quite avant-garde for Princess. You know, we've always been a quite traditional brand that was more evolution rather than revolution. But as I said, the latest product with the full technology and what we're doing with the X range is a real what's new. This is new technology. It's interesting and exciting, really.
My gosh, I've had a look at your website, and I've been looking at some of the pictures of the most beautiful yachts that you have on your website. Can you tell me which of them is your favorite and which one are you most proud of?
Good question. I think if I was to buy one, actually, I would go for kind of a mid-range. So we have a product called a S66, which is a sports boat. So it has all the characteristics of a larger boat, where you have a flybridge, so you have an upstairs. But what we did on that boat is we kind of squashed it down visually. So you get a very sleek profile to the boat that's got a lot of glazing. It's looked very sporty. And I guess if you related it to the car industry, it's kind of like your GT car. So it's got a sliding roof that you can open up, so your interior upper space is very open. For me, it was just a boat that kind of all came together in the design process, where we've got kind of an edge of luxury, and then it's slightly sporty, and it's just a really nice social cockpit space at the back of the boat. So that's probably my favorite. I mean, it's such a varied range. You kind of pick highlights, and I think it's a case of, for a design, it's generally what you work on last is often your favorite because it's the newest design. But yeah, there's a lot to be offered in the range. So I guess the answer is it's really hard to pick, but that probably
Yes.
would be my favorite if it was one.
Yes, yes, yes. I remember once we were on a holiday in Positano, and we were kind of traveling around the Amalfi Coast, and we stopped in Positano, and there was an absolute super yacht, just off Positano, and everyone was looking at it and admiring it. It was a very large, kind of black-colored super yacht, and beside it was another smaller yacht, which was also very large, and it transpired that it was Bill Gates. Who was sailing around the coast as well with his family. But every day he would get up, leave the super yacht to get into his office, which is sailing beside the super yacht in the other yacht. So it was
Yeah,
amazing,
it's
really.
actually very common. We used to build a 40-meter yacht that was it was about 16 million pounds, and the master suite on that had a what we called an ante room. So it was a study area. So you could essentially use that space that you could talk with your crew in the morning, and then you could do all your business. And we do have clients that very much tailor the boat, and they might actually buy it, particularly in the Chinese market. They'll buy a 70, 80-foot yacht for business use. So they might decide that they want to change some of the rooms for offices, or you might even have a games room or a poker table and a cinema and a karaoke room even.
My
It's quite
gosh.
popular in those sort of
My
areas. But
goodness. And
yeah.
where is it, like, where is most of your consumers? Where are they living and coming from? Is it the US? Is it China, as you mentioned? Is it Britain?
Yeah, so it's completely international, really.
Hmm.
We have dealerships throughout the world. I would say kind of the focal points of where we sail are probably Scandinavia is actually quite a big one for us. So we have a flotilla of boats that go over a couple of times a year. That they actually come over as a group, and they will actually sail them back themselves. And it's always like a big event when they come over to kind of pick up their boats and take them home, which must be pretty wonderful doing that. And then the US market is really built up recently, and yeah, the Russian Far East, even Australia, it we sell anywhere, but I suppose the highest volume is probably in Europe, really, in places like France and Ibiza and Spain and all of those places.
Interesting. And they are generally used like for private use, but sometimes they'll be used for kind of corporate work as well. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yes.
And the larger yachts are often chartered, so a client would. They always say that if you have a boat, it costs about 10% of its total value to run a year. So a lot of clients offset that by chartering the yacht out, um,
Wow.
to cover the costs of the year, really. And they do move it around the world.
Wow. And what's the most like bizarre, craziest, outrageous request you've ever been asked for on one of your yachts? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so we had it was a 30-meter yacht. This was about 3 or 4 years ago, and we had a client that owned a motorcycle business and a bespoke one at that. I think he was a American client, and it was kind of like your chopper style motorcycle with big handlebars and very big body.
Hmm.
And he said, "Oh, I've got a great idea. Why don't we, on our flybridge, which is the top of the yacht, I would love to be able to lift my motorbike from the dockside and put it onto the top of the boat and use it as a trophy of what I've achieved and show my
Oh
clients
my
and my
gosh.
friends and family." So we went about redoing all the structure at the top of the boat and putting this enormous crane on there. And then we developed what essentially is a glass box. So you opened at the end, you could drive your motorcycle in, and then you could crane it up from the dockside straight onto the flybridge, and then it would sit at the back. And this glass box was very much a product design in itself. It was incredible in terms of aesthetics, and it had curved glass going around the back. But yeah, that for me was the most like wow, crazy idea sort of thing on the yacht.
And in terms of security on some of these yachts, I mean, obviously, some of your clients are very wealthy people, and I'd imagine they'd need a lot of security. But would that be something you would design and factor in when designing something bespoke for a client?
Yeah, to be honest, because what I do personally is very much focused towards the business. I don't actually have direct contact with the client, but obviously our sales teams do. But what we do find is we have a system at Princess where you can kind of ask for anything. So if a client's prepared to pay for a bespoke system, we will put that in and we will cater for that as a customer need. I mean, certainly you can, as part of our options schemes on the boat, you can have security systems and we have night vision cameras and such like that. But there
Yes.
isn't anything that's crazy. I think that's probably more catered to the really, really big super yachts. I think they have quite a lot of features like that.
And Richard, if you could design any one thing, what would it be?
I think for me, it would be furniture. I absolutely love the craftsmanship in furniture,
Mm.
and that is something that Princess is known for particularly. I mean, what I do like as well is kind of taking technology and using that to our benefit. So what we look at is when we design a piece, we might look at a private jet interior or a luxury hotel, and what we're finding that we wanted to express the craftsmanship even more. So we kind of played around with our CNC machines, and we've developed a technique where you can actually 3D machine a hardwood capping, for example. So we've got, one example is we've got this table on one of our larger yachts, which is all in an ebony Mikasa timber with black edging, but that kind of swoops through the sideliners and into the boat, so it kind of feels like it's growing out of the boat, and it's really organic. And this kind of capping detail will flare as it goes round. And for me,
Goodness.
that's where you see true quality and
Mm-hmm.
craftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
And we're using modern technology to do that, just so you don't have the hours of a carpenter chiseling that back, I suppose.
Yes, and how many hours like would be involved in labor, for example, in creating the joinery for one of your
Oh, good
yachts?
question. To be honest, I don't know the figures for a total boat. I mean, the build time for a yacht would be probably between 3 months and 12 months, really. We produce some like 250 boats a year, and we have 3,000 people. So there's certainly many thousands of hours. I couldn't quote you a figure per boat, but it's a high number. It's very much labor intensive. All our furniture gets sprayed 4 or 5 times. Everything's handcrafted on site. We have a metal shop department. We have a carpentry department, and it's very much luxurious. I mean, something that's interesting for me as well is how luxury is changing. For luxury is not just about the use of stone or the most expensive materials. It's how you apply the whole space. So there's trends now where luxury is becoming more about experience than it is just about those materials. So we're looking at how can we develop lighting schemes or audio systems or really nice touch points for the clients, so they feel welcome and relaxed when they're on holiday. Not just here's a massive piece of onyx that we backlight. We obviously do that, but we do need to think about every single detail where luxury is, whether you're opening a shower door and you don't want it to drip on the floor, all those little fine details are
Yes,
incredibly important, because that's what a customer spends their time in. You must have that in your line of business as well.
absolutely, and it's just so fascinating to listen to you because it all comes down to those very simple questions, and looking after all those ordinary details as well as the very luxurious ones.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can look through a brochure of ours and think, wow, you designed that. And yes, you design everything. But to be honest, the most important bits are the details. That is what a
Mhm.
customer has to live with. And it is always it is an emotional purchase, whether you're buying a home or you're buying a super yacht. So you want it to feel unique and tailored to you, really, in this sort of
Of
market.
course, and would you have a lot of clients who would maybe see one of your yachts somewhere else and just want a copy of what they've seen, or does that happen? They'll see something and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I love that! I want exactly that in every way."
No, not so much. I guess we're trying to sell a brand, and you kind of buy into our brand, or I suppose you choose another product. However, we do have clients that would say, I know we've had cases before that said, well, I want to have the mattress off this hotel that I stay at, that's a
Right.
7-star hotel in Dubai, or and we do get requests like that, and we certainly try and make that work. And you do have options as a client. So we have a design studio in Mayfair in London, where we actually, people will go and you have a client service. So the client will fly in, you meet up with a design team, and you'll go over your options and your details. And at that point, you can choose stone, you can choose what fabrics you have from different ranges. And then you can obviously always say, oh, what I'd really like is I've got this image at home of this. I really love it. Can we incorporate it into that yacht? And yes is the answer. We try and accommodate everyone's requests, really.
Of course, and this is a tricky question, and it runs across all industries within the design sector. But can I ask you what happens if somebody within your industry isn't happy with something they've received, or they like it tweaked or modified, or maybe it wasn't what they thought? Or how do you manage expectations with your clients?
Yeah, so this has actually become a little bit harder recently because we're in a situation that for example, our X95, we've sold something like 15 of those boats, but we've actually only released one product. So the client is spending upwards of £6 million without actually seeing one of these clients. So
Mm.
what we do as a brand is kind of take everything we've got in the design and just try and be as transparent as possible. We're showing them lighting plans, we're showing them where what lever they're going to have and everything, just so when they get the product, they know what they're trying, they know what they're buying. And if there is anything and you have dissatisfied customers, essentially you come back, you deal with that, and you have to relook at stuff. And maybe the odd occasion we will send something back out to them in Florida. Say if they're not happy with a certain item, we might revise the design and send it out. But it's pretty rare that we get anything that a client's completely dissatisfied. I don't think that ever happens, really, which is
Yes,
great.
or it would just be something, a small thing perhaps that they may like modified. It really it can happen, and it's part of
Yeah,
the
it
process.
can. And at the moment, we can't actually get people to go on our boats and see them. So some of our new product people haven't seen,
Mm.
which is challenging.
Yes, yes. So, can you share with me how the whole process works from conception to completion?
Yeah, so we start off with working with kind of two key partners. So up until very recently, we had one naval architecture house called Olazinski Design. They've been with us over 50 years from the conception of Princess, really. So they kind of generate us the whole form, the structure of the boat, and the overall look of the exterior, really. We've also now recently, within the last couple of years, we partnered with Pininfarina, the Italian style house. So they work with us up front with Olazinski as a triangle of design capability, really. And we kind of work together and make sure that the style of the product we're putting out is to the highest of standards. And we kind of pitch ideas. Olazinski and Pininfarina and us will do different ideas, and we combine them and make the perfect yacht. And then what happens is the in-house design team that I work on kind of do everything else. So we will take the shell and the basic plan of the boat. We'll manipulate that to optimize its layout. We'll then go about designing all the interior and exterior spaces. So I look at stuff from everything down to designing what catches on a unit, or how the TV is going to pop up behind the sofa, or how we're going to have a jacuzzi that's very low, and have you got enough leg room for that? Can you sit there? Are we going to put a piece of glass on there so you can get vision from when you're in the helm, so you can see out to see the bow of your boat? It's very
Wow.
much a balance of seamanship, functionality, and craftsmanship, really, just to make it all come together. And then in the process, we kind of see it all the way through. This is what's quite different from a designer at Princess to any other industry, and or certainly consultancy, where you might just design a concept and then it goes to a yard to manufacture. We see it all the way through. We have a skilled labor force on site that we can develop all the furniture. So I get to see it in all phases of the build. And for me, the biggest buzz is when you get on that boat, and it actually happened this week. We launched our Y72, and you go on there and you're like, wow, that's
Mm.
worked. And then you go on and you feel so proud that you've been part of that process. But
Yes.
yeah, that's how it kind of plays out.
Yes, I'd say it's very, very rewarding for you, definitely.
Yeah, it is. And I guess it's quite similar to architecture or
Yes,
interior design. You kind of,
yes,
it's just a water-based version of that, really.
absolutely. And tell us about the yacht you designed with an open air cinema. How big was that?
Yeah, so this was our recent X95. We did this. I didn't actually personally design the kind of the cinema element, but what we did there is the client was very much about enjoying the outside space of his boat, because this boat has a lot of outside sun deck, really. So what we generated is a system where in the headline of one of the overhangs of the back of the boat is we had a mechanism where you press a button and a projector drops down, and then we had a custom made carbon pole setup where you actually had this massive taut screen that we had to tension, and then you project the image on there. But being a boat, you have extra challenges. You know, the furniture we had to put in there to be comfortable and use had to be flexible, yet you had to work out how you're going to fix it down so it didn't slide away. And the screen, you know, is a natural sail, so we had to think of how we're going to tether that to the deck and different things. So yeah, all interesting stuff. But yeah, that was one of those client requests that we just tried to make happen, really.
Yes. And Richard, can you tell me about leading the Princess Yachts team to two of the World Super Yacht Design Awards? I mean, it's a massive achievement.
Yeah, so because we're relative to the world of yachting, we develop, I suppose, smaller yachts. We're not in the super yacht category. We often get recognised in press releases and kind of boat show awards for the best sports boat of a certain size, or the best design for, you know, a flybridge boat or something like that. But there was a couple of products that kind of put us in a new frame, which was the super yacht kind of category, where we're competing against big design houses internationally. And we did have success on our 40 meter that we did and our 35 meter, which we actually won super yacht awards in there, which, you know, we were credited for the design and the space and everything about the yacht. Obviously in collaboration with our partners, Olazinski at the time. But yeah, that felt amazing, because just to get that recognition as a team sat there in Plymouth doing design work is really exciting.
Absolutely. And what other companies internationally have you always been very inspired by?
So design is, you know, probably not the only industry that, you know, Italians are very strong at. You know, exactly why we work with Italian Style House, really. But there's brands like San Lorenzo and the Azimuth Yachts, and Riva, of course. You know, the iconic Riva day boats that many people know, called the Aqua Riva, which is your kind of teak decks and very classic sports boat. Those brands have gone on to be key competitors. You know, they do a range of yachts similar to us, and we always want to be at that level, and I think we're there now. You know, we are competing with those yards, but certainly brands like San Lorenzo for me are amazing. They're an Italian company, and their attention to detail and craftsmanship is absolutely second to none. It's amazing.
Yes, it is. I remember once when I was working in Italy, I was brought into a tour. I'm trying to remember the name of this particular company, but they actually built cruise ships for the Americans.
Sure.
And it was so fascinating to enter their showroom and how they would actually sell cruise ships to, you know, their potential buyers. And the whole business is really interesting. It's very layered, with so many different details that need to be considered and factored into everything. It's a complete minefield. I think most people really wouldn't understand how much work is going on behind the scenes to any one job that you would do.
No, absolutely, and often clients buy boats obviously from their heart, but they kind of trust people in the industry, so they might have built relationships with a dealer or a friend that has a particular boat, and you get scenarios like a few years ago we had two brothers that brought two 35 meters, one each, and you know, even to the point that they were competing against each other. So we actually made one of them a meter longer. I mean, it's crazy stuff,
Oh,
but things like that happen.
hilarious. That is. How funny, how funny.
Yeah.
So, Richard, if I may, I'd love to ask you about how you met your wife, Alice. If you can take us back to maybe a little bit more on your personal side.
Yeah, so I did 4 years at university. I came back to what was my kind of hometown in Plymouth, in the southwest, in Devon, and I was really lucky because I've always had a really strong kind of closest friend called Alex, who I've kind of grown up with and went to school with. Um, he was seeing this girl for many months called Kat, and he said one time, you should come and meet her friend. So I did so, and what's brilliant is that we just all connected. So essentially, I'm so lucky now that my wife is best friends with his wife, and we're just a really good kind of foursome.
Oh,
So I'm really lucky that we got that kind of relationship, which is really, really great.
that is how wonderful. And how do you and Alice unwind in the evenings? I know you're very, very busy, but how would you typically unwind together in the evenings?
Yeah, to be honest with you, evenings are kind of a mad, crazy time. So you kind of finish work and then we try and put the kids to bed. Luckily, we've got them sleeping now, so that's a benefit. But
Yes.
we do the normal things. We like to cook, and we'd have a nice meal and a glass of wine or two, and sit down and watch a movie. Or I love watching things like Grand Designs, and I was
Yes.
watching something the other day of how Jaguar electrifying cars. Those sort of things still interest me. So
Yeah.
it and I'm lucky because my wife is also a designer, and we just enjoy the same things really. So and
Yes.
and then at weekends we love the coast. So we're about 10 minute drive from our local beach. So we will go down there with the children and just enjoy being outside and on the beach and enjoying the coastline really.
How lovely. And do you think little Arthur will follow in your footsteps someday?
I don't know. It's really interesting because when they're growing up, you're thinking, do you think he's got that sort of edge? I mean, the other day was quite interesting because my wife and I, he's always scribbling down and drawing stuff, and we actually said, "Oh, why don't you draw a person, Arthur?" And he actually turned around and he'd drawn a little stick man, and I was like, "Wow!" And then for the next 2 days, she was like obsessed with him, like doing stuff. So we were like drawing stuff, and he was like copying
Yes.
it and stuff, and it's really exciting to see, and he was loving it. So who knows? I wouldn't push my children to do anything. It's kind of they need to
Yes.
find their own niche, don't they, and enjoy what they
Yes.
do and do what and make a career of that.
Yes, but if Arthur and Mabel have both their parents have creative genes, it's in their blood really.
Yeah, quite possibly. Let's see what happens there. Maybe he'll be the next top architect or something. And well,
Absolutely, and
who
he might show
knows?
a real flair for product design in the coming years. So watch this space. You never
Yeah,
know. How
we might be on
exciting!
the catwalk with my daughter doing fashion design. Who knows?
Arthur will be giving you a job someday. Hopefully, that will be
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
yeah.
I'll make the teas.
And do you still surf now?
I don't actually, not a lot. I do now and again. I haven't really recently, but I have. It is something I've always enjoyed being close to the sea. And actually, when I was young, I did a lot of sailing, and I do enjoy being on the water. I just need to get back out there. I think the last couple of years is we're kind of making our little family, and now it's time they're getting a bit
Yes.
older. We can go and enjoy those things, and I want to teach Arthur to surf and do that with him, and
How
just enjoy
lovely.
that process. And same with Mabel.
How cute. That's so lovely. And where is your favorite place in your home? Maybe describe your own current home to me.
Yeah, so we live in a new build now, and that's something that surprised us that we went for. But it's kind of like a Georgian style in the essence. It's got large high ceilings and large sash windows and stuff. And we before that had a Victorian home, and we just wanted to have a bit of time where we could just enjoy being warm and not have all the negative points of an old property. But we've kind of I would say our property is, I like the Scandinavian style. So we've kind of
Mhm.
got oak floors throughout our open plan living place. We've got quite delicate, calming colours and stuff, which we've introduced through textures. Me and my wife like illustrations, so we might have illustrations on the wall. And my wife particularly loves like house plants, so we've got hanging plants and different things to give life. I'm obsessed with things like lighting. I think they're a very powerful way of creating a mood in a house. So I've just set up recently where you can actually just turn on the light, or you can in the evening you can bring all the level down and change the color temperature so you get more relaxing kind of environment. But yeah, I would say kind of Scandic and natural materials is where we are with our style, really.
And what one piece of your home holds the most special memories for you?
I don't think there's a particular piece. I think for me, it's the space, and I suppose our living dining area and kind of the family spaces are where it all happens. We might be cooking a meal. My daughter might be playing it at the side of the table, or my son might be on the sofa. It's just nice to be open and kind of active as a family in an area. I think that's a bit for me. We do have we kind of made it recently at my top floor. My son and daughter's rooms are up there, and we've kind of created this little nook on the landing where they can kind of sit and read books, and there's a nice light there, and they can just chill out and little bean bags and stuff. That's quite a cute little space that they can work on.
Yes, lovely, lovely. And what have you missed most doing? What have you missed doing the most during the lockdown? Is there any kind of one thing in particular you've really missed?
Yeah, I mean the main thing is just seeing family and friends. Really, it's been particularly hard for seeing my daughter. She had about 3 or 4 months of seeing people, and then the rest of her life she's just been with us. We when we've been able to, we obviously will go in the garden and meet family and friends or what have you, or Skype. But it's not the same as getting a hug off your grandma. So that's the bit
Yes.
we're really looking forward to, seeing friends and family again.
Yes, it's just incredible, really, how it all comes back to just the very simple things, family,
Yeah,
friends.
absolutely. I mean, it's crazy to think that for the last year that we haven't been able to leave home barely, and you don't see those people that you would see so regularly.
I know, I know. And would you often enjoy holidays with your family? Um,
Yeah, of course. They've always been an important part of our kind of upbringing and what we do with them. So we just tend to either get to somewhere sunny or again we just love the coast, so we'd spend some time on the coast. Or certainly before the children were here, we kind of my wife and I would enjoy exploring cities really. So we'd go to Barcelona or Venice or something like that.
yes,
That really be interesting for us. I love all the architecture and stuff, and seeing and feeling all the
yes,
senses as you walk down the streets is really important.
yes. I'm sure you've seen some wonderful yachts cruising around Venice.
Yeah, yeah, no, we have. Yeah, there's amazing stuff there.
There is some amazing stuff there. So, in terms of travel, Richard, do do you would you like the idea of maybe setting off somewhere really special when we can all get back to normal with your family on one of your?
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't planned anything, but I'd certainly like to. I think going out and experiencing different cultures and stuff is really important. Certainly in the next few years, I think I'd like to plan a big trip really that we go away for a couple of weeks and enjoy the joys of being able to travel.
And what one thing have you learnt about yourself during the lockdown that maybe you didn't realize before?
I guess kind of resilience. I've always, because of the kind of industry we're in, it's always changing anyway. But I kind of pleased that I've been able to just adapt to what we needed to, and not just me, my team and everyone around me, and just I guess just adapt to the situation and accept it and see it for what it is, and just hope for brighter times ahead. Really.
Exactly. And if you could give yourself one piece of advice, if to your younger self, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah, so I don't think I'd look back and perhaps regret anything. I don't think there's anything that I particularly have done that I think, God, I wish I did that differently. I think I've taken a kind of organic path and it's kind of worked for me. I guess the only thing I'd say to certainly people getting into the design industry is that it's very much an appetite for junior designers to conquer the world within their first year. I think just slow it down a bit, and you've got to learn your trade, you've got to gain your knowledge, and it just takes a little bit of time. We always say that a designer joins us and they're probably not in a position to really be really shine and for like 2 or 3 years at least in the industry. So I think it's just take it slow and just calm and just feel your way and see what you enjoy, really.
And now I'm going to ask you a few questions called a quick fire round of questions, which is a separate little segment at the end of each podcast. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go for it.
Traditional or modern?
Modern.
Dusk or dawn?
Dusk.
Swimming or surfing?
Surfing.
Winter or sunny holidays?
Oh, summer holidays.
Half glass empty or half glass full?
Oh, definitely full.
Fish or meat?
Meat, probably.
Virtue or sin?
Virtue.
Snorkel or scuba?
Snorkeling, actually.
Paper or plastic?
Oh, paper.
Stars or stripes?
Stars.
Paper or computer?
I like both, but you can't beat sketching on a piece of paper.
Exactly. Jamie Oliver or Gordon Ramsay?
Oh, Jamie Oliver.
Wind power or engine?
I love both. I mean, I think wind power, really. I think new technology coming forward is just really exciting.
Yeah, big time. And my final question, 2021 or 2022?
Well, I think that's an easy one for everyone. It's definitely 21. Looking forward to times when we can spend time with our family again.
Exactly. Well, Richard, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, it's been a really pleasure, Eileen.
Learning all about you and your family and your incredible business and what you do is just very inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to bump into you in the future.
Yeah, you have to go on a super yacht soon.
Absolutely, I'll be there.